what we ended up building is something that did not exist. And when you're trying to think about and create something that does not exist, wow, you bounce off a lot of walls.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging markets across the country. Super excited because today I'm here with my co-host Leanne Buchanan.
Hello, everybody.
And we have a very distinguished guest, Mr. Bill Harris. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. This is great.
Bill, I could already tell by our pre-recording banter that this is going to be a fun conversation in English, not French.
Oh, yeah, thank goodness, because my French, I've already expressed to you the three words that I know.
So let's start off with something fun.
Okay.
So what is your superpower?
My superpower. Actually, you know what? I bought myself a bicycle for Christmas, and this thing is like so light that I have to chain it to the ground, otherwise it'll drift away. And it is fast as the wind. And so my superpower right now is getting through South Beach traffic faster than the Lamborghinis.
Oh, that is definitely something to be envied. Now, Bill, we want to get to know a little bit more about your story. I think people, when they hear your story, will be able to connect with who you are a little bit more. So you've had such an amazing and varied career, a lot of experiences, more corporate boards than I can name and more companies that I could name. But talk to us about what first sparked your interest into startups and technology and this innovation and entrepreneurial space.
It's really interesting because I didn't do my first startup until I was 40. And so why? As many people, I grew up trying to please my parents, trying to do what I think they expected of me. Go to a good school and do well, and then, get a job at a good corporation and do well. And it was originally what I thought my parents wanted me to do. And then ultimately that's, you have this notion of what does society expect from you? So I ended up being 40 years old. I found myself being CEO of a public company with 5,000 employees. And I looked around and thought, my God, I don't like this. I mean, because when you get to a certain point in a larger organization, it's all administration. And, it takes incredible skill to do that well. It's just not a skill that I have. And it's not only that, I didn't enjoy it. Yeah. And some people say, oh, Bill, you could do it. I mean, you're skillful and everything. You just didn't want to do it because you didn't enjoy it. No, I didn't enjoy it, but I was also not good at it. And what I realized is I wanted to be a product manager. We had 10 different business units, divisions, and I wanted to dive in. I wanted to be the person who was helping to figure out what these various products would be and how we would evolve them. And, when I tried to do that, of course, I screwed everything up because now I'm diving in and telling people what to do, and then I leave and I'm not there anymore, and it was just non-productive. So I figured out, wait a minute, I've been doing for 40 years what I thought society expected of someone like me and the career we would build and the life we would build. And had the opportunity just to say, okay, no, let's try something different. And that's when I joined PayPal, and I was the early CEO of PayPal, along with a couple of knuckleheads, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Max Levchin. And it was complete chaos, but I loved it. And we started out in a little second-story office over top a bakery, and we had 14 people, and we had no idea what we were doing because what we ended up building is something that did not exist. And when you're trying to think about and create something that does not exist, wow, you bounce off a lot of walls. We were going to beam money between Palm headsets. We were going to be all sorts of things, and it changed and evolved from week to week. And as finally we got this thing more and better defined, then we got out to market and further feedback. We adjusted it some more. But when we got the formula right, then we were in a position to put the pedal to the metal, and we went from 0 customers to 1 million customers in 6 months.
Wow.
And this was 20 years ago, when 1 million was 1 million. Okay, what did I learn from that? Wow, you can do stuff new. And you can do stuff that if it works, it takes off. And I thought, this is what I want to do. This is fun. Yeah. And so since that time, after 40 years of being quite traditional in my life and career path, since that time, I've just been trying new things. Some of them smart, some of them silly, some of them just purely uninformed. But in that period of time, I have started now, I think this is my 9th tech startup. All of them financial technology or cybersecurity, so they're all within the same general industry. But this is my 9th one. And what I found that for me, I just love it. You're asking what drives you? A number of things drive me. Like many people, I hope my career is more than just about making money. It's also about doing things that help other folk. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm in a great position to do that because the financial services arena needs so much innovation and needs so much better empathy for their customers. And so there's really a lot of opportunity to do that. But the other thing that drives me personally, what excites me and lights me up when I get out of bed in the morning, newness. Something is new. Something hasn't been tried before. At least I haven't seen it before. And that's throughout my life. Some people want a vacation. They want to have a vacation place somewhere that is theirs. And every vacation they go to that place and they feel comfortable with that. And in fact, most people want something like that. For me, I want something different. Every time I go, I would like to see a different city in a different country with different architecture and meet new people. And that's just what sparks me.
I want to go back for a second to when you made your pivot.
Yeah.
When you decided that I'm not going to be the CEO of a public company anymore, and I'm going to join a startup.
Right.
That is a big move.
Yeah.
That is a bold move. What advice would you give to people that also are kind of grappling with making a pivot when they wake up and they realize what they're doing is not what they want to do, and they're flirting with the idea of doing something else?
Yeah, well, so even more important than that particular decision, am I going to get rid of this job or take a new job or whatever it is, the most important piece is trying to understand what you're good at and what you're not, what you like and what you don't. And that really takes some thinking, because most of us have spent a good part of my life, I certainly did, believing that I was good at the things that I thought people thought I should be good at. I was a corporate executive, so I should be good at arranging meetings and interviewing people and, getting investment and funding. And so you start to fool yourself that that's what you're good at and that's what you like. It's confirmation bias. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing and most important thing before you think about, well, which company, which job, figure out what you are good at and most importantly, what you like. And that is also figuring out what you're not good at. And that's a harder thing to admit. Mm-hmm. It was really hard for me to admit. So here's what I think I am. I think I'm really not a good manager. And, I've been in one way or another a manager all my life. And so that's a hard thing to say, I'm not a good manager. But I'm not. I don't have the discipline and rigor that, traditional administrative management requires. And it's not that I dismiss that. I worship that as a skill. I just don't have it. What I hope I am is a good leader. And what I know I am is somebody whose head is full of ideas. Some of them silly, but full of ideas. And when I latch on to one of those things, I'm like a dog with a bone. and just not only are dogs with a bone sort of ravenous, but they're also, if you could look into their brain, they're having the best time of their life, just gnawing away at that damn bone.
Now, you mentioned Elon and Peter Thiel
Yeah.
earlier, and I'm sure you have many, many stories, but what I'd like to know is what's maybe one thing that you took from that time period and one thing that you think that you left with each of those?
Well, of course, what I left them with was my dignity. But so Peter, they're both larger than life characters, both in their strengths and in their flaws. Peter, one of the smartest fellows I've ever accomplished. He used to, while we were building PayPal in the early days and trying to, we're just a small number of us and we're trying to do all the things we're doing, he would sit there and he'd be playing online chess at the same time that he was actively participating in the meeting. And it wasn't like he was ignoring the meeting. He was doing both, full speed, full throttle. And Elon, they're both very smart, but what Elon has as his superpower, that's what you asked, is an incredible boldness. Incredible boldness. He's got lots of faults, and he and I had our own fisticuffs, and which of course he usually won. But boldness of a type that I just have never seen before. Many people are bold. They say, okay, I'm going to take this big risk. I'm going to launch something. I'm going to, try and build something with precarious product market fit, precarious funding, all that stuff. Elon is, he's on a different planet. He just sort of thinks so aggressively that it's beyond bold. And, sometimes if you have that kind of intense belief, you can sort of make it happen.
It's interesting that you end with that. When people talk about Steve Jobs, they always said he had this ability to live in an altered state of reality, and reality would conform. And, a lot of Eastern religions, it's really about manifestation. It's like if you really, really believe it, you shift the energy.
You shift the energy, and most importantly, it's not like something wild and supernatural, you're shifting the world. No, but you're shifting your own determination, and belief. Listen, if I don't believe, and this in sports, this is well known. If you believe you can jump that hurdle, you can. If you don't believe it, even if you have the athletic skill to do it, you won't be able to do it. It's like when the first person does the 4-minute mile, then all of a sudden a bunch of people come in and make the 4-minute mile.
Yeah. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your new venture.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yep.
And a lot of people are coming, and so I'd love to hear why Miami, why here, but also what problem are you solving?
Yeah. So Miami first. I've been in Silicon Valley for 25 or 30 years, and I love it. It's great, and it's particularly a great place to start technology companies because there's so much technology-based skill there, not just engineers, but marketing and product and investors and the whole thing. It has become increasingly difficult because, yes, there's a huge talent pool, but the demand for that talent is even larger. And it's not only a matter of recruiting talent, but then it's also retaining talent because everybody has so many intriguing things to go do. That's one thing. The other thing is, of course, just the cost of living. And the cost of living, let me give you an example of how intense the difference is. The average home in San Francisco costs $1.44 million. The average home in the metro area is $382,000. And so that's more than a 3x difference. That makes a big difference. In Silicon Valley, people who are well compensated can do fine. But most of your employees, and most importantly, most of the people in the area, they really struggle. just economically. Put on top of that, of course, the tax rates, which get to 10% pretty quickly and even higher than that on a state basis, versus no taxes here. And the economics really allow me to offer somebody a much better quality of life if they're willing to come out here. And I don't need obviously everybody from Silicon Valley, and the vast majority have no interest in leaving. But there are enough who would say, hey, listen, I'd love to find a better place to raise my kids. And so I have been successful pulling people out of Silicon Valley to Miami, particularly people. I want people who are sort of the core starting point, folk who know how it's done in Silicon Valley, have seen it before. And at that point, once we seed the organization here, now we're moving our emphasis towards trying to find and develop local talent.
So talk
There's
to me.
one other quick thing.
Yes.
One other quick thing about Miami: sunshine.
Oh, yes.
And an ocean, a beach.
And a
Unlike-
beach.
Yeah.
And a beach, right. Which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
There's Silicon Valley out there. We're trying to make this, as are many people, Silicon Beach. There's Silicon Alley in New York. There's Silicon Prairie in Austin. This should be Silicon Beach.
So tell us about the new business.
The new business, we're trying to do a global digital bank. So what does that mean? Actually, we're not global. We're going to start out U.S. Actually, we're not a bank. We have a sponsor bank, and we're just a fintech. So it's kind of like the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither Holy Roman nor an empire.
Yeah.
We're a global digital bank. But what does that mean? We're trying to give people banking services. First of all, the global part will start in the U.S., but then we go to Canada and then hopefully Latin America and elsewhere. But we're trying to give banking services, access to your money. I mean, what is banking? What is banking? Banking is taking the short-term money needs and making it easy for you to use your money. Banks don't. They make it hard to use your money, and sometimes they make it economically punishing to use your money. So what we're trying to do is take all these fragmented products, a credit card over there, a checking account here, a high-yield savings over there, et cetera. Take all those things, each of which has their own miserable gotchas. A checking account, if you go below zero, $35 overdraft fee. A credit card, if you go one day past the due date, $35 late fee. All of these gotchas, all of these fees, all of these fragmented products, no wonder people don't pay any attention to their money. American households are living unexamined financial lives, and that's no good. Money is too important, not in and of itself, but as a mechanism by which you can achieve in your life what you'd like for you and your family. So what we're trying to do is move all of those pieces together into one simple format. One account where you can get credit, you can make deposits, you can do checking, where you have high yield savings, where you can make any kind of payment or get paid in any way. Put that all together in one very simple account. So people know what they've got, it's easy for them to use it, and they can, most important, and there's no fees, and most importantly, so that they can relax. Because the single biggest problem that we have globally in developed economies, well, not the single biggest problem, but a big problem, is stress. And of the stressors that make us run around like chickens in a chicken coop or rats in a maze, the biggest stressors, the most off-cited reasons for stress, the top three are all financial. It's your money, your job, and the economy. And so what we're trying to do is just simplify the personal money portion so that you can just relax a little bit.
Now, I'm curious to understand how you're thinking about this new way of banking and how it might apply to different populations. As
Yeah.
you know, Miami is a city that, like so many other cities, has really huge disparities around socioeconomic conditions. That literally, I'm looking out the window, I can see a neighborhood that has like a 10% differential in life expectancy and a 44% poverty rate right over there. How are you thinking about this product as addressing the really big challenges in underbanked and non-banked individuals?
Right. Well, that's a great question. What we're trying to do is create a credit and savings ladder. And how do we do that? Think about the traditional credit card product. What happens is the firm that is offering a credit card has a credit box, meaning you have to have within a certain range of credit score and a certain range of income, in which case you qualify and you're approved, and if not, you're declined. That's a miserable thing because, first of all, people can't get credit, but secondly, what allows the experience? And so what we're building is something that will support universal approval. We will give you a card regardless of whether you have what's called in the industry no file, thin file, bad file. No file is just, I don't know, maybe you've been a spouse at home and you've never had any credit activity, or maybe you're an immigrant just coming in and you have no credit record. Thin file is you're a student and you're just, you haven't had, you're starting to emerge, but you haven't had much credit history. Bad file is you've been delinquent. Maybe you've defaulted on a couple of things. We can afford to take people like that because we have this notion of fluidity. We don't have one product, we have a relationship. And we can start you out with a very small credit line. But then with the same card, you can, as we get to know you, you can increase the credit line. We can increase the credit line because we've seen your performance and you're using money responsibly. And then most importantly, if you have a source of recurring income, maybe it's a checking account, maybe it's a direct deposit, a paycheck, or maybe it's a Social Security check or something like that. If you have a regular form recurring income and you bring that into the account, then we can say, aha, you have an ability to repay, and so we can now start to offer credit. And so what are the two things that that people on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale need most? It is, first of all, credit, and secondly, credit that's not exploitive. Because what's the alternative? A payday lending. Payday lending at 500%. Or even worse, people don't realize it's even worse, but overdraft. Overdraft, you bounce below zero, $35, you do it 3 times in a day, that's $105. That happens multiple times a year. You're already over $1,000 a year for free checking. And it's worse than payday lending. And the only reason it doesn't have such a bad name is that it's done by otherwise respectable financial institutions. Anyway, we can get rid of all of those gotchas, all of those fees, and we can give somebody sort of a starter kit for credit that then, with responsible use, we can move them up first the credit ladder and then into the savings ladder.
And what's interesting, and I'd love to hear your take on this before we move into the lightning round.
Oh, God, there's a lightning round?
Oh, yeah.
The lightning
Oh,
round.
be careful. I might shoot my own sparks at you if you
I'm
get
not
nasty.
surprised.
All right.
But Bill, I mean, I think what's interesting about how you've described the disruptive nature of what you're offering is there's a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah.
I see education, financial literacy baked in, which is
Yes.
the biggest thing that the institutions are going after. So I'm curious to understand from your perspective, what are some of the opportunities beyond what we've discussed? And then what is some of the pushback that you might be seeing? Because what you're offering is completely different
Yes.
than the status quo.
Yeah. Well, so what are the opportunities? The opportunities are manifold because people are not well served today. The products are not flexible. They're not easy to understand. They're not transparent, and they're not fairly priced. So tremendous opportunity in that sense. What are the obstacles? Some of the obstacles are institutional. They're regulatory obstacles. There's technology obstacles. We need to use someone else's already built transaction processing system as an example, or the card networks or the ACH networks, et cetera. And those are typically old technologies that were built 40 and even 50 years ago, and they're not flexible, to say the least, and many other problems. So we need to build on top of those and build around those. But I'll tell you, when you're trying to build something that's brand new, some of the biggest obstacles come from people who you are trying to help with a better product. Why? Because people like to know, they like things that they're familiar with. And even if the way things work today in the world is not ideal, if you're familiar with it, then, trying something new is tough. And so convincing people to try something new, that's probably the hardest challenge we have.
Yeah. Most people are more comfortable with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't.
That's right.
Why don't you kick us off, Tyler?
Are you ready for the lightning round? Are you ready, Bill?
Oh, God, I don't think so. I think I've got to
All
go right now.
Let's see here. What was your childhood dream?
My dream, geez. Goodness. You know what I wanted to be? This will date me. But you remember the old story of Superman, the old Superman thing? I mean, you probably haven't seen it, so long ago. But they had an editor-in-chief. And the editor-in-chief, Clark Kent, would, when something bad happened, he would tell the editor, and the editor would get all flustered and say, "Stop the presses," which meant the newspapers needed to stop for this new story. And so I wanted to be a newspaper editor.
Oh.
I wanted to be able to say, "Stop the presses." And in fact, my first step into my first career, the first 10 years, was in media. And I was not in newspapers, but in magazines. But that's what I really wanted to be. I wanted to be a communicator. And in some ways, that's what I am today. And, on the internet and with software and technology, it's just a different mechanism for communication.
Yeah. Bill, what question would you ask a fortune teller?
Oh, goodness. So, these are supposed to be lightning rounds. I'm supposed to tell you right away. What would I ask a fortune teller? I would say, who's going to win in 2024?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler, your go.
Where have you found peace?
Where have I found peace? Here's where I find peace. When I'm doing something and I get to a point where I can be happy with it, be satisfied with it. Doesn't mean necessarily the end, but I've crafted something, whether it's an idea or a memo or a PowerPoint or a piece of code or something, where I've crafted something, I get the sense of, okay, this is not necessarily a finishing point, but this is a way station. And then what I always do, and it's not because I should, it's just because I get great satisfaction, I take another look. And I just sort of sit back and enjoy what has been produced. And that gives me peace. It's the steps in the process, and now I'm to a final position. It's like when I was a kid. I cut lawns in the summer. And I loved it because it was something where you go back and forth and you can actually see your progress. And most of what you do in life, you can't see your progress. Here you can see the progress, and then finally you're done. And when I was done, most kids would just go jump in the car and go to the next place. I would take 5 minutes and go take a look at that lawn. Boy, oh boy, doesn't that look cool? That's where I find peace.
Awesome. Bill, what is most important to you?
Well, I'll tell you. My dad and I are very similar. Same interests, same way of thinking. I respect my father more than anyone on the planet. We're very similar, with one huge difference. He runs on discipline. Gets up at the same time in the morning, 6 a.m., gets to the hospital, does the thing, knows what's happening, et cetera. I don't. I run on enthusiasm. And so, I just get fired up about things and go chase them.
I love it.
Well, with that, what inspires you?
That's a good one.
What inspires me is seeing people who persevere. It's one thing to have ingenuity, it's one thing to have ideas, and I certainly love ideas. Even if I'm never doing anything with them, ideas, my gosh, spectacular. But there's a difference between having creativity and having ideas and having persistence, and particularly persistence in the face of obstacles. And they can be economic obstacles or physical obstacles or just, you're trying to do something that's hard. But what I really respect is somebody who just sits there and grinds it out.
Last question. What is your purpose?
You know what? It's funny because someone was asking me something different, or I'm not even sure they were asking me, but what I blurted out. The two most important words for me in my life, purpose and curiosity. And they're essentially two different ends of the spectrum. Curiosity is purposeless. It's, wow, this thing came in front of me. Oh, how does that work? What is this? What color is it? Why does it fly? And I'm endlessly curious, and in fact, enjoy being with people who are curious. The other end of the spectrum is purposeful. It's okay. We're done with this curiosity thing. Now, how do we get this thing done? And what is my purpose? It's sort of in a simple way. It's at this point just to launch new companies. That seems to be what I do. It seems to be what I know how to do. But more fundamentally for me, what is my purpose? Ideation. That's what I love. And I hope that when I pass, I will have left some ideas that people will think, were important and successful.
This has been a great conversation. Bill, how can people get in touch with you, with the new company, social, website, all that good stuff?
Great. Well, it's so first of all, the website is nirvana.tech. And secondly, what we really like to do now that we are in Miami is attract the very best tech talent in the area. And so that's not just engineers, it's marketing and product and finance, but people who have experience in hyper-growth, consumer-focused tech launches. And so, if you are somebody like that, please send us something, and you can send it to happiness@nirvana.tech.
Bill, thank you so much. This was a fascinating conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, me too. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly.